Okay, so thank you, Lincoln. I think this was a good introduction of what TR-398 is and what the scope that it covers. And I would also like to start my bit of the presentation for also thanking BBF for putting the time and effort into coming with this initiative. This is key for us. And before I get into how service providers like Vodafone and others can actually leverage this initiative, let me pause for a moment and highlight a message that has already been presented in other discussions. So Wi-Fi is the main interface for most of other commands. And that's actually how some of our consumers actually measure the overall quality of experience. So no matter how good our devices are that we may put down there in the field, no matter how fast the connection is on the wire or which features we might deciding to put on, if we fail to provide a reliable and stable connection over Wi-Fi, the experience will not be good. The customer will call us back, they will ask to replace the device, and they might even switch over to a different service provider. And that's really a situation that you don't want to be in. So that's actually the reason why any Wi-Fi related initiative, certification plans, whatever you want to call it, becomes a natural area of interest for us, for carriers. And this is actually the reason why Wi-Fi aligned certification programs are typically part of our requirements, because they are more than just a logo. They actually help us create some confidence that when we put our devices out there in the field, they will interoperate between devices. But that doesn't necessarily, while this is important, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the work is being done. There's actually plenty of more that we can achieve, and that's where actually we expect TR-398 to help us on that yet. So let me try to explain that with some examples. So we talked about coverage, stability, and so on, but one of the key aspects of this is actually performing assessment. So I think it's actually no surprise that service providers actually test their devices and assess the performance of their devices. Why do we do this? Because we want to get an upfront feeling of how our devices are performing, so that we can do some bug fixing. We can try to understand how the customer will perceive the service, if that Netflix stream works just as fine over Wi-Fi. But we also want to compare how those new firmware releases behave when in compared to the previous ones, or even when introducing new devices. So it's really important to have a comparable results, but more often that we would have desired, sometimes we don't have results which are comparable. Why is this happening? Is it because we have deceivable measurements? Is it because we have poor testing? Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a simple lack of alignment. And I have personally came across some interesting use cases where, for example, we had one team reporting a specific performance, like let's say 200 megabits per second, and no matter how much effort we have tried into replicating those results, we could not. And simple reason was that in this particular case, we were just testing different security protocols. For example, we had the supplier reporting as a result in open security, we were using WPA2, but sometimes it's something as simple as the device heading. I actually already came across another example where we just rotated one device by 45 degrees. It was enough to get the performance to drop by 25 megabits per second. And that's a problem that we need to solve. Otherwise, we cannot really understand if we are improving the experience as we go. So this is where I think TR-398 has an opportunity to give us a reference test plan where we can have a predefined setup, which devices are connected, at which distance, and so on. Which environment are we talking about? Are we referring to a congested scenario? Are we referring to a scenario where we don't have interference? Which tooling? So while we can purchase different tools to test device. Sometimes we just want to run a quick test, like for example, iPerf. And even if we use the same tool, sometimes using different parameters is enough to get a different result. So here again, this is where I think TR-98 stands a good place where we can refer to and we can all fast track these discussions and have more comparable results. The second use case that I would like to talk about is about features which are implemented by different suppliers. So it's fairly normal and expected for a service provider to have different gateways from different manufacturers, but expect to have the same service on top. And here, just to make it clear, we could be talking about something as simple as a guest Wi-Fi network where you want to isolate some specific clients for security or even performance reasons. It could be airtime's fairness, in the sense that we don't want a specific station to completely render the rest of the network useless. Or maybe it's just a WMM, a class that we use to get a specific device a bit more performant than the others. But our experience out there is that apart from performance, sometimes there are also different interpretations. So different vendors may implement the same feature in different ways, and that's a problem because that leads to different behavior. So what actually happened is we want a normalized solution out there in the field because we want to have a repeatable test case. We don't want to fork out the development streams. And many times we have time-consuming discussions about features which we believe to be fairly standardized and well understood by the market. And again, with TR-398, we actually have for the first time a place where we can resort to and have a clear set of expected results that we can refer to and fast track of the discussions. And there are actually more use cases that I could talk about, but I think these actually these are simple and easy to understand that actually help us see the benefits of this initiative. So before allowing Lincoln to close up and wrap this discussion, I just wanted to leverage this opportunity to encourage other service providers to jump in the discussions, share your experience as well, help us get this test plan as much as rich as possible, because personally, I personally didn't understand how easy it was to come here to BBF and have these discussions and really have a good alignment on the market. So thanks for this opportunity, Lincoln. Would you mind to close up?
Great. So hopefully the mic's on. Yes? All right. So basically the message at this point is not done yet, right? So 398 we released this past February. That was the published version that we refer to as issue 1. And essentially we immediately started work on issue 2. And what does that mean? So obviously there are gaps that we haven't yet covered. One of the probably most obvious ones is 802.11ax is rolling out. And becoming out there. And so there's a strong interest in what is the performance and the requirements going to be around the new technology as that evolves. We haven't yet actually addressed any of the cases around multiple APs and roaming. There's a lot of other technologies that are out there that are techniques probably rather, that we're also looking at. So things like client steering or band steering that can be out there. And all of these kind of techniques or these parts of Wi-Fi are really critical to that carrier grade aspect of a deployment that service providers are using to give that best possible experience. And so in developing 398 and continuing to extend it, what we're doing is kind of setting the standard for what is the minimum bar for that performance and how well those techniques and those features need to be implemented in the device. And again, going back to the service provider being able to use it and the operator being able to use it to really kind of evaluate their device, other devices, firmware improvements, and firmware versions as things kind of march forward in time being out there. And so it's really great to see other operators, like Vodafone and others coming in and giving strong participation and stuff. Really encourage everybody to be able to get there on like what's going next. We do also have a couple of our other projects around Wi-Fi. We've talked about the Purple collaboration with OBMap. From that and the TR-69 USP data models that enable some of those operational parts and pieces of it, as well as the QED and the ability to kind of measure Wi-Fi as one of the links that are involved in that customer's experience that's there. Getting involved, a lot of information on the Broadband Forums website. You know, if you download the slides after this, then you'll be able to get a hold of the link, download the technical report, as well as some pointers there. In terms of getting involved, it's 4 quarterly meetings face-to-face a year, plus an average of 2 to 3 conference calls that we address this topic on as well, so all of the tools to kind of do that online collaboration. During the show, we've got some demos with QED right over in the pavilion, so I'd really strongly encourage everybody to get there, and then also just a link to the university's implementation of the setup if you want to read more on that as well. So, thank you, and does anybody have any questions?
Do you have a timeline around when issue 2 will be available?
So ideally speaking, we'd really love to get it out by this coming February. There's a lot that's kind of come up in terms of the new features and some of the asks from operators, so I don't know if we're going to hit that goal, but that's certainly the goal we were shooting for.